Hi everyone, and welcome to my second part of, well, it's not really my second part of my workflow. I'll probably call this why I shoot raw and why I do the workflow that I do. So it's tied in with my workflow. Now, if you remember in the previous video on the workflow, we edited this image. We went from this to this. So we'll just press a C key. And the one on the right's the before and the one on the left is the after. So let's press the D key to go back into the develop module. So if I had a couple of questions, well, not questions, but a couple of answers and a couple of emails saying, hi John. One of them was, I save raw or shoot raw. Now in my previous video I said that I now shoot raw most of the time. So I don't know if you understood the words that were coming out of my mouth, but I'll say it again in this video, and hopefully you will. But you said that if I added a graduated filter to the sky and pulled it down 3 or 4 stops, I'd get a better result on a RAW file than a JPEG. Well, I'm not that stupid, pal. I already know that. I don't need to be told that. Come on, I've got nearly 300 videos out on YouTube to help photographers, even from novice to the more keen photographer, and I know that adding a graduated filter to a RAW file will give you 1,000 times better result than adding it to a JPEG. Now, I'm not being funny, and I don't want anybody to take me funny, but it's just annoying sometimes when you say something and somebody doesn't listen. So if you listen to what I said, I did say that I do the RAW conversion first, which means that if I was to shoot a landscape and I wanted to add a 3 or 4 stop neutral density filter to the RAW file, that would be done in the RAW conversion stage, meaning I wouldn't convert to JPEG until I'd done that. So I'd do all my editing on the RAW file first and then archive it out as this image is here. That's a RAW file. That's a RAW file. That's the edited version, finished 95%. Like I said, I may tweak it for print or for the web or maybe for something else, but it's 95% done. I would not come back to this image in a year's time and decide, let's imagine that the background was a sky, that it's not a white background. I wouldn't come back to it and go, I might just add a neutral density filter to that and knock the sky down 4 stops. Only a clown, I'll repeat myself, only a clown, meaning somebody stupid, would do that. I would never do that. And if I knew that I was going to do that and that I was that sort of editor, that I might come back to something a year later and do a wacky edit with it, then yes, I might save the RAW file or the DNG in my case. I might save that file, but I look at my work from a year ago and I don't like it. I think it's shit. I like to look at my work now and look at my work a year ago, and now I think my work's a lot better. And I personally think if you're looking at your work from a year ago and you think it looks like your work now, then bad news. You're not getting any better. So that's the way it is. Unless you can say, no, I'm a master, John. So I can't get any better. My work's just as it is now. It's brilliant on every click and I'm a master. And I know you're not a master. And I guarantee that 1,000% without even seeing your work. Joe McNally, shit hot portrait photographer, phenomenal. He ain't a master, and he'll tell you that himself. He's learning something new every day. And David Zeiser, great wedding photographer who I want to be like, he's learning something new every day. We all learn something new every day, and that's what keeps us into photography. If we were just phenomenal all the time and the best that we can be, then I'm quite sure we'd be bored and we'd want something else. So I know people have said, and I'm not saying that you don't do it, but this is my reason for not doing it. I don't want to save RAW files and big DNG files just in case that I might want to edit it 2 years later. That ain't happening. I do a job or I do something, I get home, I edit it, I tweak it, I get it finished. I never used to. I used to save RAW files all the time. And then I got sick of just having these raw files. Like this picture here now, for example, is a finished product. I can print that. I can send that to a lab now. I mean, it's a TIFF because I've deleted the JPEG that I saved for the video. I have got the high-res JPEG on my hard drive. But I could send that now as a JPEG to be printed at 30-inch wide at 50-inch down, right? And I could send this file. I could just quickly edit the D&G with the sliders in Lightroom and send that with the information in the D&G, so it's a raw file, and get them both printed. And you wouldn't, if I named that one 1 and this one 2, and they come back in the top left corner of the print, you wouldn't tell me which one was 1 and which one was 2. You wouldn't have a clue. And I know because I've done it. I'll repeat that. I know because I've done it. Me, I did it. Because I don't just listen to crap. If I hear something, I do it myself. And then I know. I don't have to just... Because there's a lot of crap on the internet. And people just talk a lot of... They'll read a book. And... Or they'll read the, let's say, for example, the rule of thirds, and they just spew it out all the time. When you take a picture, straight away, they're looking for the rule of thirds. Now, the rule of thirds is just a guide, right? You don't have to use it. Let's look at this picture. Okay, his eyes are up in the rule of thirds, which I always do, but that wasn't really because I was thinking of the rule of thirds. That was because I was thinking of the headroom, and I didn't want to leave loads of headroom, not because of the rule of thirds. Now, I mean, he is off-centred a little bit, and I did off-centre him in a couple of the shots, but to be fair, because it's just a plain background, it doesn't really matter where he is in the scene. But some photographers, just because they've read in a book that the rule of thirds is, they'll look at it and go, they won't even look at anything about the picture, they'll just look at it and go, it's not on rule of thirds, next picture, next. And I've seen them do it on critiques on YouTube, they're just dickheads. Can't do with dickheads, man. At the end of the day, a picture's a picture, and if it's a lovely picture, it don't matter whether it's in the centre. Or, to me, what does matter, when I go through David Zeiser's book, Captured by the Light, he's got some lovely pictures where he's off-centre. I've got them myself, but I'm just talking David Zeiser here. He's got some lovely pictures where he's off-centred, he's put the bride and the groom in the bottom quadrant, but the background's lovely. He's showing the lovely, nice archways and stuff like that. So there's a reason to offset the subject, and it makes it look great. But if you've got just a plain background that's not telling a story, then in all fairness, the background's like the background in this image, let's be right about it, it's just there because it's there. It ain't interesting. That white background is not interesting, is it? It's rubbish. It's just a plain background. So why do I want to off-centre him right over here and have a boatload of white here for people just to look at? You know, the picture's about him. So remember, don't just think about what other people say. It's about what you think and what your clients think. So back onto the raw file. So yeah, all my editing is done in the raw conversion, and then I archive to JPEG, like I've said, and I hope that that's clear enough for everybody. And again, if you're looking at your work and I mean, Jesus Christ, I can think to myself, the first ever picture that I took of a person, I better keep the raw file because she might ring me up in 6 months. If you start thinking like that, then you're going to need like 1,000 2 terabyte hard drives. And it's just not worth it. Your photography should be improving big style every year. If it isn't, you're not getting any better. Bad news. If it is, then you'll understand what I'm saying to you. You'll totally and utterly think, John, you are right, my friend. My photography now is better. So why do I want to keep crap? Now, I know I'm calling it crap, and it's not crap, but it is, and it is if you look at it something that you've done more recently. I'm not saying that I ain't got good pictures that are really good that I did a while ago as well, but I'm saying as a rule, like when I went to studio for the first time, one of my big things was I kept leaving loads of headroom on all the pictures, and I had to crop loads of it out because I wasn't recomposing and filling the frame with my subject. So I mean, this was a while ago, but let's just give an example of that's one thing that I learned. So when I went again, which I learned not to do that. I didn't leave as much headroom. I didn't quite blow out the background enough. I didn't make sure that every time this guy, Lex, he kept going off for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever, just 5-minute break. When he walked back onto the backdrop, I made sure this time that he stood in the exact same position that he was stood in before by putting my camera bag on the side of the backdrop so that I knew he stood level with that, so that I got accurate exposures. The first time I went, the person, I just didn't really take no notice, and they just stood wherever they liked, and I made mistakes. So, I mean, it's only stupid mistakes, but you can see what I'm trying to say here. Now, and then when I used to zoom into 100%, because I'd have to crop 30-40% of headroom off on the backdrop, it used to have degraded quite a lot. But now I don't do that. As you can see, that's out of the, well, I'll just go to there. That's out of the camera. I couldn't help leaving these little bits aside here. I'd have had to, if I'd have zoomed in a little bit tighter, I wouldn't have left the headroom. I want a bit of headroom because then I can print it at different sizes. If you come in, like, let's just press the R key. If we'd have just took it something like maybe this, I mean, you can still crop this like this. You know, like I edited this picture, didn't I? I could crop it like that instead of doing any. And if I'd have took it like that, I don't really leave no headroom for printing this thing. And if people put it into or somebody had put it into a frame, they're not going to be able to put a nice insert round edge because they're going to go over his head. Now, I know damn well they're not going to do that anyway. Shift Command out to reset, and that totally didn't work. Let's try it again. Hey. So, in all fairness, I like to leave a little bit of headroom, and I knew damn well that before I got home that I would do that to the white bits, but use the exposure brush because that's my workflow on studio shots, and that's what I wanted to show you lot. So, yes, remember that in the RAW conversion, I will do all my editing, 95% of it. I'll say it again, 95% of the editing gets done in the RAW conversion. Come on, we all shoot RAW for one reason, and well, not one reason. Let's say why we shoot RAW. We shoot RAW because we don't shoot RAW. Do we shoot RAW because the file's 20 meg instead of 4 meg? No, we don't shoot RAW because of the file size. Do we shoot RAW because RAW has less letters than JPEG, because JPEG's 4 letters and RAW's 3? Do we shoot RAW because RAW is a chicken? We shoot RAW because it gives us better editing capabilities later on. It gives us better fixing capabilities later on. It gives us being able to fix the white balance later on, and it doesn't come at any cost. So it means it comes at lossless white balance fixing, and that's really why we shoot RAW. Photographers do not shoot RAW, I'll assure you, for bigger prints. That's not why they shoot RAW. Nobody shoots RAW because they want to do a bigger print, because printers don't print RAW anyway. So people shoot RAW for that reason and that reason only. So to be fair, and I've always said it before with the JPEG, and I do shoot RAW now, but I'll still stick up for the JPEG. I could have shot this shot in JPEG or in RAW. It wouldn't have made a cat and hell's bit of difference. All I did was cool the white balance a little bit on that one, I think. On this one, if you remember, because when I added the contrast, it went a little bit yellow. So I cooled the white balance down. I could have shot that in JPEG or RAW, and I could have printed it just as big from the D&G as I can from the RAW. And I'm talking through experience. I've done it, and I know the score. So that's why we shoot RAW. So if we're going to come home and edit the picture and fix it and fix all the problems with it, I mean, and sometimes, like in this case, they weren't really problems, they were just tweaks, just to tweak it up to make it look like a finished product. And as you can see now, it looks finished. So I don't really want to archive a RAW file now. I don't need to. I can archive it as a JPEG. Now, I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm telling you my reason for it. I will archive this as a JPEG because it's a finished product and it's 95% finished, and I can still tweak that. To be in all fairness, I don't think you've actually done it. I have. I could still tweak this. I could well, I have got it as a JPEG. I could open the JPEG now and I could still give that a good hard edit. And don't just talk from what you've read. Prove it to me. Prove it to me. Do me a video and prove me wrong. But you can't, because I can prove you wrong, because I've already done it. I could edit the shit out of this JPEG now, and I'd still be able to print it big. I'd still be able to print it big. But I wouldn't, like I've said, I do 95% of my editing that I want to do in the raw conversion, meaning when it's a raw file or a DNG, and then I take it to JPEG. So I know that all I probably do to this image is maybe give it a bit of a colour boost. Because, like I've said before, sometimes you look at an image for that long, it might look a bit colourful, you reduce the colour, and you come back in a couple of hours and think, Jesus Christ, that looks a bit bland. So I might give it a colour boost and a bit of sharpening, even maybe a touch more contrast, I don't know, but it'd only be there'd only be tiny little tweaks. But that is fine for me to archive as a full res JPEG. I don't need to save it as a raw file. And yeah, in a year, if he knocks on my door and goes, oh, can you know that picture there, number 6598? Can you do this with it? Then I'll say no. I aren't going to start saving hundreds of raw files in case he knocks on my door and asks me if I can do something totally and utterly wacky with it. I'm not doing it. Why should I? I don't need it. It's a shoot, it's gone, it's finished, and it's away. But if he were to lose that picture, if his house were to set on fire, or I shouldn't really say that, but something were to happen, he had it in his car in a moving house and it flew out the back window and smashed along the motorway, he can ring me up and say, have you still got that picture? And I'll go, yes, I have, and I'll print you another one. That's the thing. I'm not thinking about editing in 5 years. And to be honest, I'll look at this next. This is the first time I've ever really worked with a male model in a studio. So I'm sure I'll look at this. I'm going to start going to the studio a lot more now. So you'll be seeing a lot more shots. But I'm going to go to the studio again and probably shoot more. So you'll see that the next shoots that I do, I'll probably do a better job. But on this one, it was one of my first shoots, and that's that. And I did say to you just before I go, I'll show you, and I'm going to show you this now, and I shouldn't really show you it for one reason and one reason only. Remember when I said I edit the JPEGs and the 95% done? Now I'm just going to command here, and I'm just going to show you these JPEGs. I mean, the first thing you're going to notice, and I could have fixed it, but I didn't for the reason. If you look at the first image, look how it's not. Let's go to the next one, watch. Look at the contrast difference. And can you see? So ideally, that first one there, to me, now I'm looking at it. Now I've had a break and I haven't looked at it for 2 weeks. I'm looking at it and thinking, there's not enough contrast. But it don't matter. It's a fixed JPEG. I can add a bit of contrast and boost the colour and sharpen it up for print or for the web. But looking at it now, because I stared at it for so long, it's not got enough contrast on it. But I'm not going to... I could open it in Photoshop now and quickly tweak it, but I'm not going to. Because I'm not going to print it and I'm not putting it on web. Well, I don't think I am. But you can see, look at the contrast difference in between. Look at his jeans. But they're still high resolution. JPEGs like that. I'm looking at that and I could warm that up a little bit. I'm looking at that. I could warm that up a little touch. But they are finished high resolution JPEGs. Like I said, they're 95% done. But like I say, for print, I might warm them up a little bit. And look, all nicely done. High resolution, JPEGs, finished, done and dusted. And I did just say I'd show you them. See, that one there is warm. That's warmer than that. And that happens. And that's why sometimes, ideally, it's recommended that you take 10 minutes out and come back. But you could do that forevermore. I could edit these again now quickly and tweak them up in Photoshop and come back after a day and look at them again and do something again. But as you can see, they're all fixed. The white balance is nice. The floor's all fixed. The picture's fixed. The sharpening, the clouds, everything's done. It's just a little tweak that I made. Is that on my screen or on the floor? Oh, there might be a little mark there on the... Don't know if it's the... Yeah, it's on my screen. You won't see it. Yeah, and on these pictures, basically, I'll show you how I did this. On the grey background where I stepped in forward, I draw selection round him, and then I inverted the selection and I did a Gaussian blur on the background, and that's how you get the nice smooth grey finished background. And anyway, just fly through these. This is where I got bringing in the rim light as well. Rim light again, and then this is where I really, if you look at the difference, all I did between this picture and that picture was stepping forward another 4 foot. And that's what happens to your lovely background. It really drops into dark grey. You can see the gorgeous rim light on him, the nice two catch lights in his face, and we finish off on this one. And we finish. See, if I look at that one, it's not got as much contrast as that one. So in all fairness, I'm slagging myself off a bit there, but as you can see there, I've said to you they're the 95% finished JPEGs. Any little tweak, bit of a contrast boost, bit of a colour boost, bit of sharpening can be done to a JPEG. No worries. And I've just said it and I'll say it again. I could still edit them JPEGs really hard as well. I mean, I'm not saying I'd better put a neutral density filter on a sky 4 stops to a JPEG, because I wouldn't, but I'd still better tweak them. I'd better convert them to black and white, pump the contrast even harder, pump the clarity up, pump the sharpening, pump up some shadows, and I'd still be able to print them out 20 by 30 inches. Admittedly, I probably won't be able to push them as hard now as I would be to the raw file, but trust me, and I've done it, and I've had test prints, and I know for sure that you can do that. Now, sorry if this video's been a bit harsh, but it's just to tell you why I shoot raw. I'm not saying you should do it, but I like to, when I tell you something or I say something, I like to back it up. Like I say, I don't like to just spew crap and leave. I like to tell you why, so you understand why I'm thinking the way I do. And that way, it's a fair game to you then. You can sit and think, well, that's a bloody good idea. I don't really go back to raw files, so I'm gonna, but, or you might think, I know when I did one of the Skype calls to a few people, they turned around and said that their raw files, they're not always that bang on. That's why they like to really shoot raw and keep raw, because they say their files are not bang on. And they admitted that. They didn't tell lies, and that's fine. But what I would say, if your raw files aren't bang on, my personal opinion and why I'm going to say it is, don't put up with it. Why is it not right? Try fix it. Now, I know you can come back and fix it in RAW. That's the idea of a RAW, yeah? But try fix it. Don't let, like, all them images that I just took, they could have all been a stop and a half under expose, 2 stops, and I could have fixed every one of them, right? We all know that. But why live with that? You're a photographer. Take control of what you're doing and figure out why. Fix it in RAW, obviously, but figure out why it did it and try not let it happen again. And it'll make you a better photographer. I'm not saying, you know, you're a bad photographer, but if things are badly underexposed or badly overexposed, or the framing's not on, or this isn't on, or this isn't on, then yes, you can fix it in RAW. And if the white balance is violently off, yes, you can fix it in RAW, but figure out, try think to yourself, why? Why is it underexposed? Why is it overexposed? And fix it on the location, and it'll make you a better photographer. And to be fair, you'll have better, because at the end of the day, people think you can turn a RAW file up 4 stops that's underexposed, and it'll come up and you'll fix it, but it will come at a cost. If you got it right out of the camera, the exposure, and you printed it out 60 by 80 inches and you underexposed it 3 stops out of the camera and you recovered it and printed it 60 by 80 inches, I'm talking massive here, not small, you would see the difference between the 2 files. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused when they talk about a JPEG. Yes, it is less quality, but I tell you now, you can print, like any one of them JPEGs I've just showed you, I could print out huge, the size of a bus stop side, and they'd print out brilliant. And that's where I think some people get confused. They think because it's a JPEG that it's not going to print out big, but they do. Yeah, I can get prints that are 20 by 30, I can send them in medium quality in JPEG, and they still come back great. And I know that because I've done it. Thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe.